against them. And how we bridge the gap between having everyone come in and participate is we have a commonality of clean water. And so when we think about clean water, we all have that in common. And our salmon are our bloodline. They come out and they spawn in the Adams River, in the glaciers. It's known as crystalline in our area. And they come out in a 4-year cycle. So they come and spawn, and then they go out to the ocean, all the way out to the Fraser, and out all the way up to Alaska, and then come back again. And that's a sockeye salmon. And so we have so many ceremonies that we've done to preserve and protect our salmon. We have salmon feasts, we do pipe ceremonies, we've done canoe journey, we've done a walk for clean water, all to raise awareness on the Tk'emlúps people and their battle against Trans Mountain and against Canada in actual. So my dad, Sawses, I'll let you come up and just do the prayer. And thank you for Tiffany for doing the land acknowledgement, and Kuksham for having us here tonight. It's a really big honor. The last time I came out, we went up to Fairy Creek and we stayed with Elder Bill Jones for a number of days, and it was a really good honor. We were called in to do a brushing off ceremony for all of the people who were brutalized by the RCMP. And it really took a lot of energy to do, because there was well over 300 people that we helped out that day. So I'll just let Dad do the prayer.
You shut the cameras off in order.
Just so we have from 2-year-olds and up. We had teachers that mailed in their pieces, and I and my sister were quilters, so we quilted these pieces together. A lot of our pieces are upcycled cloth, and then it was 10 by 10, so we put it all together all throughout. It's by the 4 pillars. We have medicine water. It's a rose bush, so there's 4 pillars on each side of the quilt. So on the top and the bottom, there's 4 pillars. And when we're guided by ceremony, everything just falls so naturally. So our arrest that happened on October 15th of 2020, we were actually in ceremony at that time. And then also on the 17th, there was more arrests on that day. So everyone could kind of know who we are. We're the otherwise known as the Tk'emlúps 8. Even though there's only 3 Tk'emlúps, but we kind of adopted a lot of our helpers. And when we went into court, the judge kept asking, well, what does that have to do with you? What does you being arrested within Tk'emlúps territory, on the land, and with these natives? And Romley Kavanaugh, she's an ex-Trans Mountain worker. She actually said, well, I'm witnessing acts of genocide. What I'm doing here is helping and being an ally to the Tk'emlúps people. And so her words are carried all throughout the whole court proceedings, because she would say, well, what does that have to do with you when it comes to child apprehension? And all of these things, because when you bring out a legal battle, they actually want to see how you are a Tk'emlúps, how you perceive yourself to be a Tk'emlúps person, and us having to prove that we're still here. So us stating, well, we couldn't attend today because we have the 215 children memorial that day, and the judge would say, well, what does that have to do with you? And they had to answer. Our allies who came out to help us had to answer a really tough question and say it has everything to do with us, because we're witnessing this. We're actually having to stand and have to help the Indigenous people and fight for their land, and to prove that they're still having to say that they're still here. So when we would go to court numerous times over the past 2 years and have to prove that we are still in existence, it was really hard to do that a lot of the times because we have family, we have different, we had passings and we had different things that were going on in our lives. And what brought us to the Mission Flats and also to Airport Side Road at that time within Tk'emlúps territory was our salmon. That was our salmon spawning time, is in September into October. And the impact of salmon, that if there is ever a spill that it could occur on a twinning of this pipeline occurring, we just couldn't risk that. And when we say that they want to starve you on one hand and have you starve in the other, that's literally what Canada is doing, because they can govern the Indigenous people by Department of Indian Affairs, or they could starve you out by killing off your salmon and our future generations. That's literally what we're facing. We're facing a genocide of large scale under ecocide, under this large scale systemic issue of violence that we're facing in our territory, not just ours, but into other areas. The high impact of arrests, the judge witnessed and stated that the Indigenous people were more handled not so delicately as a non-arrestable non-Indigenous person. Stated that they were more likely to be troublemakers to the arrest and to target them because of their outspokenness. And they actually develop an actual RCMP separate unit to deal with Indigenous people. And not talking about the Native liaison officers, we're talking about ex-military, ex-RCMP, even hired RCMP officers on their time off to brutalize Indigenous people, and we see it now even as we speak with Fairy Creek and what goes on in the brutalization of Indigenous people and our helpers, our allies. So I also wanted to bring this. This was, it says, no, I don't have a deed to Tk'emlúps territory. Justin Trudeau was asked if he had a deed to our territory. And when we're saying that it is unceded, and the reasons why we say it's unceded territory is because they don't have a deed. Canada does not have a deed to any of the Indigenous people's lands. And so when he was asked this very important date, on this date, January 9th, 2019, he said, no, he didn't. And so it's proof when we have to go into court and we say, we have a statement from Justin Trudeau saying he doesn't have a deed to the land. So we then have to prove again. So it's almost like this monumental portion. So what was leading in Fitzpatrick at this time was Stacey Gallagher's case. We're looking at 21 days in jail, with us having to be forced appeal, and then we'll go up. The next court is Supreme Court, and then keep going until we get the result that we want. Because at the bottom line, we have to still prove that we're still here and Indigenous at this day and this time, having to go to court and prove that. So if you're not knowing too much about the interior Salish people, we don't have deeds to the land for the Summit people. Don't have that. So they're actual active tenants on our territory of unceded Tk'emlúps territory. And when we bring up the Shuswap Okanagan Confederacy, it actually means that we have an alliance with another nation that supersedes any of the other portions that come forward.
So while we're taking this break, I made an observation that there's more women at this meeting, and I can see that more women. I always talk about the women coming back into the rightful place. That's true rulers of the world, the women. So now you can see almost wherever you go, we have more women than men, because they're coming back stronger. It's slowly coming back. But in order for the women to be peaceful and at rest and everything.
Sage off. We need sage.
We have it.
Okay. Okay, I was just saying how we needed sage, so I don't know if we could use sage in the building, but
Probably
do you
not.
have any sage? I don't know if we have any sage. I left my bowl in my car.
Where's your car?
It's just down in the, you kind of go on the main street here. Do you want to go grab it?
You can wait.
Okay.
I'll tell them about it.
Yeah, Bill and sure. Yes, Auntie.
So as I was saying, the women are becoming more and more, because we lived in a negative all this time. We lived in a negative for the men. We try to take over, try to rule the world, and we can't. So that's the negative part. It's the men's part. We build things like this. We build cars, we build highways, we build hospitals. Anything to enslave our own people for how long? And that's mostly men doing that. That's why I'm trying to bring it up to your attention to the women, so they will become stronger. Well, not just because I'm saying it,
Yeah.
but it's coming back.
Yeah.
It's becoming back. And so, and the women, it's already been predicted a long time ago that the women are going to save the world. It's in the Bible. They said that women are going to become too arrogant, especially when they find out things that the way they're supposed to dress and the way they're supposed to behave. They're going to become too arrogant. Right now, the women can shut every man out. Get rid of them. They got sperms now. They can, even a sperm, they can take the man out of sight. That's becoming too far advanced. That's why I was saying we're becoming too arrogant. Not us men, but everybody. We're following the government. We can't be doing that. The women got to go back to their, but the old people say the women go back to your tradition. And for me, the fastest way for the women to go back to their tradition is start wearing that dress. Wearing that dress. The words that come from the Creator comes down. Everybody's got a soft spot in top forehead, every one of us, when we were born. And so we started getting older, start standing up, start seeing things, and this thing's getting harder every day. So now the messages that are coming more difficult because of the roof and paint and everything. So that the messages come through the soft spot, comes into the core. They call this the core. And if we're wearing the pants, we split our power. We split our power. For the women, come up there, goes into the soft spot, into the core, and that circle at the bottom of that dress represents everything in the universe. And that's what the women protect, because they're the true rulers of the whole universe. That's what the women protect. Water, fish, everything. It's this much story.
I have a similar story, but not quite that with regards to the clothing thing, because worldwide, we have a lot of wars happening right now between countries and between the genders. When overseas they're talking about women having to wear the hijab and everything else. Okay. So that's a different fight, though. That's a different fight, but we do have one common fight, and that is about defending our mother. We all have one mother, and her name is Earth. All over the world, we are doing our best to rise up, to warrior up, and defend what is left with Mother Earth, because there is no other plans. I heard, a few weeks ago that, the countdown is closer than ever before we can turn things around. And that's, they said 6 years or something like that. And I'm like, okay, this is where, the women have to rise up. But it shouldn't solely lay on the women's shoulders to make the changes. It's we, the people, Natsma. When we act as one, that we can, do some damage control. I was just sharing when I first came in here about what I learned over the last month, since the last time I met with a few of you guys, about, the Congress of Aboriginal People is one of the groups that I've connected up with, and they're based out of Ottawa. And I was talking to the lawyers about what Justin Trudeau just signed. $700 million or $1 billion, or I think $1 million, for building jails from coast to coast. And 2 of those jails, BC has the privilege of being the home base for those places. So the first thing I asked the lawyers was, I would like to see the map where they're proposing to build these jails, because I want to do an overlay between where the jails are located, where the pipelines are, where the fish farms are, and like wherever there's land defenders taking action. So anyhow, so they're working on that at the federal level. But a bit of good news with regards to the power of the people standing united. We managed to get the cookie from Tk'emlúps. It left Fairy Creek a few days ago. It's now in Montreal. It's now in Montreal at the conference. Along with it, there was also a number of us land defenders who went to greet the cookie. And it was predominantly women, because we understand that's where our power is right now, as as life givers, as the first educators to the next generation, that it is our responsibility to follow through with our own commitments. And so we have a bunch of youth that have attended the conference. They've been there for about 10 days now. More of our old-time, land defenders, that have been there for over 20 years, they're currently attending. Tomorrow, I'm flying off to Montreal to be with the cookie and to be with our people, because a lot of the people from the East said it's the first time ever that they've heard so much from the West Coast about, the importance of the land. So we are doing what the ancestors had said that we should have been doing years ago, and that is acting as one. So that is a positive that, that we're going through right now. This TMX and fish farms and all that stuff, as much as we don't like it, there is one good thing that came out of it, and that is that we are coming together. all races, all genders, we're coming together and we are standing up. If anybody saw any of the news yesterday, it was our warrior women that kept drumming every time Trudeau opened his mouth. And I'm like, I'm so proud. I'm so proud of the strength of our women from the island here and from the ones that came from up north. And they're standing up, you know, they're not holding back from any authorities. But that's the kind of strength that we need to continue on with the court cases. Because I was just saying that, you know, while these guys were in Kamloops going to court, Fairy Creek people, 155 were in court. Was it yesterday or Tuesday or something?
Tuesday, I think.
Tuesday, 155 land defenders were in the Nanaimo courthouse. And 4 out of the 155 got, one got jail time, another one got a fine, and I forget what the other 2 got. But the 151 have had their court date delayed until the end of February. So right away, I'm saying that there is something going on. The government is trying to pull the wool over our eyes by having these guys going to court at the same time that we're going to court. I think it's time, you know, we tighten up and really get out and support all of our land defenders from coast to coast. So that's what's been happening with Fairy Creek. You know, a little bit of bonus, sending a cookie to Montreal, sending land defenders with it. Warriors are uniting. And we're still here fighting the court system. Yeah. Yeah, cookies rolling through the back of the turtle.
So I just have some cedar going here. I thought I had some sage, but my dad usually does a cedar sage mix, so there's some cedar here going, and it's like I said, it's really hard work, and we have a lot of allies that help us a lot, and Karissa is one of my friends, and I've known her for a number of years, and so when we're going to court, we need as much help and support as we could get. As Indigenous people, as people standing up for the land. Right now there's a camp that was started near Burnaby Mountain, and it's snowing out. Like when we were coming in, we were just saying how the difference was in temperature. From our area, it's minus 12. When we started getting into Vancouver, it was like down to minus 6, and then it was like down to minus 2 in Vancouver area. So there's a camp that was started there, and they have a little teepee there, and if you ever get a chance to go, urge you to go and just give coffee or give anything that you can to assist anyone who is standing for the land. The work is very tiring at times and can take a toll on you mentally or physically or spiritually. You know, as the organizers who've helped organize the event and opened up this space, it's really awesome that we can come and gather like this and just have open conversations after, and usually leave time for networking so we can network more after. And this is being live. So I wanted to talk a bit more. This is some of our other pictures that we have. We're grassroots, like, so our banners and our posters are all from the work that the kids put together, the youth put together, all of the work that comes from, my daughter made this banner This was an after quilt, we call it, because this one came from this big piece, and so that one came from an after quilt. So in here we have the canoe journey. Everyone who knows Will and Roxanne, they actually, my friend Roxanne has 2 Secwepemc children, and so they came and joined us on the canoe journey. Her children are half Secwepemc, and so they came out, and on that day that we did the canoe journey was the day that our elders said, yes, you could finally have a camp after almost 10 years of work. So we opened up with a concert. So we landed, we had concert, we had stick games. Yeah, so our elders are the ones who guide us in all of the work that we do. And so it took us that long to keep saying no to Trans Mountain. Well, then it was Kinder Morgan. And then just keep on going. And then finally they were like, yeah, you could have a camp, you're ready now. So 10 years later, we were able to have Skukpichin, which means the sandy area, on Mission Flats area, where a number of my dad, Romley, Laura, and, Dad, Romley, April, and Billy were arrested on the Mission's Flat side, which is the Skukpichin. And I and Susan, who's here, hi. Susan's here, and Laura and Heather Lamoureux were arrested on the airport side road on the other side of the river. TMX is actually now being charged with desecration of pit houses. Everyone knows them as Tk'emlúps. And so they're actually formally being charged as of maybe a week or so ago. So they knew about the sites. They did the environmental assessment plus the archaeology, and Trans Mountain didn't heed any of the recommendations that were given at that time of stories, legends, and the elders that give testimony at that time. They just went in and desecrated our pit houses. So right now they're in court, of course, after the fact. So a lot of the things that we're doing is raising awareness, and we have to keep on going. Like, a lot of people said, oh, well, almost 50% of the Trans Mountain has been built already. But they still haven't talked or tested any of the water site areas. They still haven't talked about the salmon streams. They still haven't talked about all of the damages that Trans Mountain is actually doing. They're just saying, well, 50% is built. But there's the aftercare and there's the remediation work that has to get done. Then there's like so much things that they're just trying to gloss over, as in like we did 50% of the work already. So you don't need to see any of this other stuff that's going on with this Trans Mountain stuff. When they clearly are damaging Mother Earth with deforestation near the Merritt area, they actually destroying whole mountainsides and stopping water, like an actual creek near the Coquihalla. And this is what Trans Mountain's words were in one of the newspapers that I read, was that there was no actual people that lived in the Coquihalla area, and that's why they get away with what they're doing. But yet, if you look up the definition of what Coquihalla means, it actually means the fish actual, like, you know, you're actually fishing area to the people of that area. So then that's the work that we're having to keep on doing, you know, is we have all of this other traditional knowledge plus the environmental knowledge, archaeology knowledge, and all of these things that we have to continue doing, because court is like the last portion. Court has meant that we've exhausted all of our means of having to prove that we're still here. And like court is like usually the last resolve of that. And to tie us up for 2 years in court, we're looking at another 2 years just to look through a GLADU report on Indigenous perspective and taking that into consideration. So, we were arrested 2 years ago. We work every day. Like, we're working like literally every day to raise awareness, to go out and take care of the sites. Virtual page, it's We the Secwepemc Say No to Trans Mountain. And through there, we upload pictures, images, and videos. And then from there, we don't actually have to have, it's a virtual camp, so we could actually just be doing what we're doing right now and still upload to our virtual camp. Because anywhere we are, we could virtually go anywhere. I have my friend who works out of Calgary, who does most of our press releases for us, of course, with our input and all of our documentation that we want to put forward. And she'll do it virtually for us and then send it back and we approve. So it's like we work virtually on the same things, and the work is so important. And right now, our GoFundMe is for our legal costs and expenses. We're self-represented. We don't have lawyers. Some do consult at different times under documentation on filing, and we have lawyer friends who give us help. But it's all grassroots organized, meaning we're from the ground up. So a lot of our work that we do is just us getting up and having to testify in court, bringing legal documents into court, and being our own lawyers. And this has been over 2 years that we've self-represented ourselves. And the reason we chose to do that without hiring a lawyer was because mainly because they can't actually get up and say, well, Your Honor, you're committing genocide against these Indigenous people. No lawyer will actually get up and say this to the judge. You'll be disbarred immediately. So we could say that. We could get up there and we could say and voice what we want. It's in documented court transcripts, and it's being transcribed for us, and then we get it back and we review. And it's the same with our allies who are all arrested with us. We read through all of our documentation ourselves, and so that's the portion of self-representation. So our GoFundMe, when we put one out, it's a really minimal cost. I mean, we're up against a $1 billion corporation and we're asking for $10,000. This is at this point, we just go. At this point, we're just doing without sometimes. And so what we're doing is going up to almost like this David and Goliath portion of the court rulings and decisions, and going up against Canada and having the voice to actually say that with absolutely nothing. I mean, 10,000 between 8 of us for the past 2 years, and even beyond that, any other funds that we've raised before that, add it all up at very minimal. I mean, I could go and spend that on a retaining fee just for one person. So that's the type of thing that we're talking about when we say, okay, we're self-represented, we're going into court, these are our trial dates, these are our court dates, and this is the support that we need. And it's really basic. It's really very basic support that we're requesting. And it's not even the fact of that, it's we do it with or without. We still gather together. Susan still comes to my house and we'll have tea. And those types of things we still do, as our family unit, as our allies, and as everything, because the work that we're doing is just so important that we have to really band together. And again, I don't know if we have enough time, but I have a little video of my sister. So my sister was actually praying at that time that she was arrested on the bottom. She was later let go without charges. So my sister is Tk'emlúps. It means cold water, and she has 2 children. So when it comes to having to do the work, most of the times it's mothers. And there's my grandmother who just passed away not even a month ago. She was our number one like fan. She would be like, "You guys are doing that, I'm there. You guys want the salmon, I'll bring the food." Like, she was like our number one go-to for like literally everything. She would book the hall for us. She would like encourage the youth to go. She had a garden. She was just like so engaged in like everything we did because it's grassroots. And she's the matriarch of our territory who passed away. So now we have to step in and fill that void. And it's a really big responsibility when it comes to, say, my age group, and then down to the younger age group, as to having to now grow into shoes of like having to fill a matriarch's position. And her being a monumental stone in our community is greatly lost. She was a language teacher. She grew a garden. Her husband was Wolverine, my grandfather, and she fed the people on the front lines. So it's a big shoes to fill. And so with that, then we have Canada government like hovering over you, dragging you to jail, and all of this to prove their point of like, no, we actually want to force assimilate you. So that's the portion we're still dealing with. So with that is my friend Jeffrey McNeil. He actually did a 4-day fast on island at Tk'emlúps, and he kicked a lot of the motivation off. After we had our concert and everything, he was like, I'm gonna have my fasting time there. So his grandmother, his great grandmother, in 1951 fasted for 4 days to stop the original Kinder Morgan pipeline in 1951. This was the time when we were still banned for potlatches, gatherings such as this, and even just to drum or sing or have any type of ceremony in 1951. So his great grandmother actually fasted in that area to stop the Kinder Morgan at that time. So we're seeing generations now having to deal with environmental impacts. And it's not just like, okay, you could choose to leave and you could move and you relocate. Well, actually that doesn't work because we're talking about displacement. And when we're talking about displacement, my friend Jeffrey worked for TRU, was a professor, and was displaced because of extractive industry. Because he spoke up and said, no, this is wrong. When TRU gathers monies and they give $40 million a year, whatever it is, from Trans Mountain to run their programs and services out of TRU. So he is displaced now. He lives in Vancouver. He's now by choice living there because the impacts that we have to face when we're at home are so detrimental to your health, spiritually, mentally, physically, that people choose to relocate. So relocation isn't the answer. Us having to be like, okay, this is where we are, time immemorial, we've been here, and having to prove that protection of clean water is like a thing to do. It's like, this is what we have to do. We don't have the option. Now, if I was an environmentalist, I could just go on to the next cause. I could definitely just jump and go over to the next thing, but I don't have that choice. My children live here within our territory. My children are in care of my grandmother. You know, we're taking care of her legacy. All of these, we don't have a choice to leave. So it's then placed greatly big responsibility then onto us, and then onto our allies to help us. And so, you know, all of the work that we do is by people like you to keep it going, motivation. I talk to law students, I talk to professors, I travel all over to speak on the same issue. I talk on environmental impacts, and the injustices that we're facing. And the human portion of all of that still is the connection of clean water. The underlying portion of what connects all of us is water. So when we say, okay, we want to protect clean water, what does that actually really mean? It means to take care of ourselves, that we're able to go and help other people. That's literally what it means. Because if you were able to go and assist in other areas and territories, and you are water, you'll be able to do that. That's the humanness of that portion. And when I went to Fairy Creek, our teaching and what we gathered from what everything that happened there, the DNA called you to be there at Fairy Creek. It was the trees. It was the water. All of those things called you to be there thousands of years ago. To be there to protect at this day and this time. Under that is clean water. So the whole of Mother Earth and care of that is a big responsibility. And so I then, I give that gift of knowledge to all of you to stand for clean water and keep helping Indigenous people under our perspective. Because realistically, what you're witnessing is genocide. And we keep talking about that. That might be a harsh word for some, but it actually is. The act of genocide when you're actually environmentally being racist to somebody, meaning that you're doing self-destructive behavior to peoples that have nowhere else to go. That we've been here from time immemorial, and that we're actually live there. And so forth. And that's just one perspective of that, is we're facing open pit mining, we're facing deforestation, we're facing fish farms, so many things under this large scope. And why is it then brought back to Canada for permits? For them to be permitted on the land, they have to go and get a deforestation license from Canada. They're the same corporations that are going in with the pipeline, and they're getting permits to go and keep on doing what they're doing. And when we Indigenous people say, no more stolen sisters, we blame Canada. In actual, they're the ones putting these large pipelines in near Indigenous communities that are so thin stretched. It's unbelievable at the rate of women that go missing near man camps. That's the scope that we're facing, and we're stating that as Canada doing that. If anything, the takeaway would be question that as to why is that person standing with a sign stating what they're stating? Why is that I should be able to help? I am the citizen of the area. And that's the real underlying, the humanness of how you can help is just to bring it out to that portion. So thank you guys all for coming out. I'm not too sure on the time, but
you're perfect
okay.
Time. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And I will open it up for a question because I don't want to just leave you guys hanging. If you guys have any questions, please ask me. I do have networking time for like 5-10 minutes after. So if you guys have any. Oh, I don't know if we have time for the video. Yeah. So, do you have any questions?
How long is the video?
I think it's about 10-15 minutes, I think. But I'd have to get it off of my phone here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's not a...
Yeah.
Karissa's our technical, it's just, not able, so.
Maybe at the end.
Yeah, we could do it up after.
Yeah.
Okay.
Questions?
Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you for inviting us to have a better understanding of what you're dealing with and what you're doing to withstand this abuse. I'm just curious to know if you are connected with Raven Trust and Dogwood in any way as allies in your cause. Because I know there are two organizations that do or have in the past done a lot of supportive work with groups of people and communities who have specific challenges, and they work as allies, not as champions. And just have you been engaging with them at all, or?
I have, like, there are some portions where we do ask for assistance, so mapping, we do printouts and little things, but GIS mapping is usually we ask for a couple of our friends to actually get some mapping and things like that, but not so much as to asking for some of those bigger asks. But yeah, definitely it is more grassroots, and I feel like we'd have to be more, not to say organized, but we'd actually have to formulate that a bit better. But definitely.
Susan Smitten, I don't know if she's still the chairperson or director. She might be somebody you'd enjoy having a conversation with, just to sort of brainstorm where there is something they can do to, even just brainstorming, even just because they've dealt with they deal specifically with Indigenous communities issues from a legal perspective.
Yeah, we do have friends that are in the West Coast Law Society, so yeah, we do have connections, and believe me, we've reached out a lot to a lot of people, so it is just reconnecting, I think. It has been 2 years, so we get to any upcoming dates that are coming up, we like to encourage, going to that and then just retouching onto all of that. So yeah, thank you for the reminder, but yes, we are in that is all the perspective of like having to do the work. At the same time, it's as though, and Canada was really the one who we had to really talk to on that, because our chieftainship and our matriarchs and everything, we have to, like, as a unit, move together. So a lot of our decision making, has to go to them on that portion. But yes, we do. We're getting to the exhausted point of the tail end. So it's almost done. So next week is our upcoming court date. So it's our trial. So this is what we've been waiting 2 years for. So we'll be in Tk'emlúps court, in Supreme Court, from 10 o'clock until 2 or 3, all of next week in Kamloops court. Again, that's a trial. That's what we've been leading up to. So there's no pre-trial. We've gone past all of everything. We just straight to trial. So we're getting the tail end of that part, but we still, like we said, we still have a lot of work to do. So yes, it is. It's going to take everybody.
Are there 4 of you on trial this week?
Yes, there is. Yes, there's Susan, Laura, and Heather that are on trial next week.
This week?
Yeah, this coming Monday. Yeah.
And there's 1 more after
They just finished.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on that note, again, as the Stacey Gallagher portion was left off from Fitzpatrick, her decision is basically what she's going to hand down to the 4 that just finished up. So that decision was 21 days in jail, and so
28 actually.
28, and 21 I think it's time served or something like that. So 21. So that's his court date again will be for sentencing on the 23rd and 24th of February of 2023 in Kamloops Court, Supreme Court. Yeah, is there any more questions?
Hi. Thank you very much for sharing the experiences of your struggle and for educating all of us, and thank you for your wisdom as well. I would personally really love to go up to Burnaby Mountain to support the folks there and to support whoever else needs support, but myself and I'm sure others are unable to go up for various reasons.
Yeah.
My question is, what's the most helpful thing that we could do from elsewhere? Would it be fundraising? Would it be to send supplies?
I think it is. I mean, I can't speak for that, but I definitely can speak under the Indigenous perspective of, like, you know, gas cards or, you know, just food or a drop-in for tobacco. There's numerous things that they put out as a request to just kind of check in with what their camp is requesting.
I was just going to say another helpful thing is just from the media point of view, just to help amplify the word and getting the word out there is really important, the educational component. So keyboard warrior stuff is really welcome.
I was curious if you could speak a little bit more. You had mentioned self-representing and the limitations of using lawyers that are, you know, working under the colonial system. And I mean, other than the cost, like, what are some of the benefits or things that are more advantageous for you to self-represent?
Well, the difference for us and why we chose to do self-representation was that we can state, like, hey, like, this is what the portion, our limitations would supersede their, say, ruling. So Canada actually only assumes that they have jurisdiction over the Indigenous people. And so we have hereditary structure that we could draw from. So our natural law comes from our own Indigenous land-based usage, plus our hereditary structure and our matriarch. So if we, you know, say we went to court and I asked my lawyer, could you please just submit this document? And they would just be like, I'm not submitting that. They just would not submit on any cause our side of the story, plus as to the actual having to prove you're still here.
Like a lawyer that was representing you, that you had hired to do that, would not submit that?
No. They actually swear their allegiance to the Queen when you actually take the bar, when you go to law school and you're gonna graduate and you're getting out in the world of law school and you're getting your clients in and everything, and you can get revoked. Yeah. You'd actually be disbarred. And there's a case of Gustafson Lake that my grandfather was in, where his lawyer was disbarred and actually deemed into a mental institute for bringing about the same question that we have. And he's an actual lawyer. Under international law, like, he actually went as far as the international law portion. So
Was that recent?
no, that was in 1996. It still pertains because it still sets precedent. So all court goes to the higher portion. So like I said, we're leading off of Gallagher, and that's what Fitzpatrick, the judges, basically set precedent at. So anyone after that, you know. So yeah, we can't. If I hired a lawyer and I said, okay, submit this document and charge Canada with crimes against genocide, like against our people, you'd be like, no, I can't do that.
Like, so no lawyer in Canada really
No,
can do that?
I don't know one lawyer who will do it, except for maybe that some that didn't take the bar, but yeah. A friend of the court will do that for you.
And I think it's not just arguing the genocide point, it's arguing the jurisdictional point.
Yeah.
That the jurisdictional defense, that this is unceded Secwepemc territory. It's, in other words, it's not Canada.
Right.
Therefore, it only follows that Canadian law does not apply when you're not on Canadian soil. And we are in a really rare situation with this particular nation, because we actually have, as you can see in that poster there, we actually have Justin Trudeau in front of hundreds of people, it being pressed, admitting that Canada does not have the deed. That's the only nation where we've actually managed to get Trudeau on tape admitting that. So that is potentially, if they're gonna follow their own laws, that's potentially very conclusive.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, this is an incredibly racist judge, and anytime there's anything like that that's brought up, she just has a big basket with the label irrelevant on it, and she just says that's irrelevant, that's irrelevant. So she is ignoring her own colonial laws. She picks and chooses which laws that will reinforce her predetermined agenda. She has a big rubber stamp that says guilty on it.
And Susan has seen that in court. Helping us in court.
I've even taken the knee.
Yes.
And got kicked out.
Yes. Numerous things have gone wrong in that courtroom. And so that's the portion we're having to go through, you know. So
Mhm.
yes, we have, and the difference is if we hired a lawyer, you get, you know, X amount in retaining fees,
Yeah.
you're a land defender, you get out in a day, and then, you know, you can go and get community service, or you can go and get what the last person got. The outcome is almost the same, but different, because the outcome that we're proving is, yes, I can get a lawyer and I can get a retaining fee, and they won't bring up any land issue at all. They can't even bring up the fact that I'm Indigenous. But yet, if I represent myself, I should actually do all the work.
Yeah, like I guess they'll
Still
just
do it.
focus on the civil contempt part and
Yes.
argue to get a reduced sentence.
That's all it is. It's
Yeah.
meant for their structure,
Right.
not for Indigenous people. So.
I don't think the judge even knows what the.
Oh yeah, she did not know. She didn't even rein us in until like 2 years later. Almost like she just was like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I forgot to ask if you're guilty or not guilty." That's literally what we're dealing with. This is, and we've stated under act of prowess, meaning that if we're not knowing, it's unbecoming of us that we're not knowing that our outcome be the same. All I'm asking for is the same outcome as if I'm going to come in here. I'm not going to get 2 years in jail. No, because I've acted on the act of prowess. I've asked you to help me. In this court of Tk'emlúps court, house, and Supreme Court, I've asked the judge to actually help us. We're not knowing. So maybe we forgot to, you know, fill out the right paperwork. It's not going to change the outcome. I'm still looking at the same amount of time. I am bringing about the land issue though. I am still having to prove we're still here. So there's a slight difference, but if that answers.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a thing to argue. It's like you're
Yep.
arguing that the laws are racist and they
Yes.
should not be the laws.
It's the
So-
same outcome. And us having to be like, okay, I could hire a lawyer. I could still have the same outcome if I walk in there and walk out. I'm still having the same outcome. But did I clear my goal and objective? Why would I get arrested in the first place? Why? No, there's actual hidden portion of that they don't know why. What led me to the river that day? Question that. It's that portion where you can't see the veil. So the judge, the Crown prosecutor, the lawyers that are to be hired, or friend of the court, whoever it is not answering those bigger questions. When we could just say, the onus is on you, Canada. Prove to me that you have the deed to the land. Prove to me where you assume you have jurisdiction over me. Prove to me where consultation and consent could mean very much different ways. Consent means if you go over and you're doing something and they grab you and arrest you, they're violating your consent, not without my permission. Shall you touch my body? Shall you sexually assault me? Shall you do all of these things, arrest me? Violating and putting me into jail is not my consent of that. That's the portion of having to state those type of things. You legally can't say that. You get your lawyer to get up there and say that. Have fun with that. It just doesn't happen. So those types of things. we've proven time and time again in court, and every time we got in front of her, we were able to say exactly what we need to say. And our objective is then obtained. And we're not just the wonderings why of that. So, but yeah, that this department people have fought successfully. And so that's where that goes into that. So that's the portion under legal stance. You know, and then there's the salmon ceremonies. Every type of ceremony we have is all showing that we're still in existence, but at the same time under the UN declaration portion, which if Canada is following by that, would recognize in ceremony. So technically they can't arrest auntie, they can't arrest sister, they can't arrest these people because they're in ceremony. So that's the consultation against it. It's flawed. So much more. That was all in court. So all of those big questions and everything were all presented in court. Those are the way I talk is the way I talk to the judge. And no one has say over that. I definitely don't give permission for anyone to speak on my behalf or my children. And, you know, besides my dad, he's our hereditary chief. I will get him to say anything the women need to say. And so we gather all the women. We have elders council, we have women's council, we have youth council, we have every kind of council to talk on these types of issues. So yeah, Kuksham, thank you guys.
I don't even know some of the charges sometimes.
Yeah, she
Mixed up.
yeah, she was getting, she didn't know, and I think it's just the kangaroo court at that point, so. But yeah, thank you guys all for coming. I really look forward to networking. Feel free, there's food and snacks. Stick around for 5-10 minutes.